Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about the book Let Them by Mel Robbins. A New York Times bestseller, this book was written to give people the tools to create a better life and better relationships. Join us as we share our thoughts on the Let Them theory and how we've been putting it into practice. Listeners, today we're starting a once-a-month podcast series based on the book Let Them by Mel Robbins. You may have heard people talking about this book as it's a New York Times bestseller and the term let them is popular on social media. In fact, we did a podcast a few weeks ago called The Rules of Adult Friendship, where we talked about a podcast episode put out by Mel Robbins where she talks about the let them theory. At the time, I don't think I realized she had written a popular book about this topic. Did you, Julie and Mindy?
No, I hadn't. I'd really never even heard of her until I went to that podcast.
I know. I felt the same way. And then it all of a sudden was like everything was flooded with Mel Robbins. I started seeing friends that were posting the book, her podcasts in different places. And so just a lot of advertisement for this book. And so, I mean, it's very timely.
Yes. So listeners, we're going to do 1 or 2 chapters a month. You do not have to be reading the book to enjoy these episodes because we're going to bring in our own life examples and what we got out of it. But if you want to go ahead and get the book and follow along with us, it's called The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Otherwise, you can just sit back and glean what you can from our discussion, which I think will be quite a lot. All right, Julie, why don't you introduce the book and Mel Robbins to us?
She said she discovered the Let Them theory at her son's prom. She'd already been through 2 proms with her daughters, and they had done extensive planning. Everything, was highly planned down to the last little detail. But with her son, he didn't even decide to go to the last minute. He didn't have a tux. He didn't have the shoes. He had no dinner reservations. He hadn't really taken anything into account, and down to even the corsage for the date. And so she just realized how much she wanted to control and manage this situation. And her daughter was like, no, Mom, just let them. Like, it's okay that they have no dinner reservations, that they're going to go to a taco stand and before prom and all these things. And I think she even pressed it a little far because her son had said, my date doesn't want a corsage. And she thought, no, that just can't be. So she had bought one and brought it to the pictures and presented it to the date, like, no, you've got to have this. And the date had made her own corsage. And she said she just felt terrible because I think the girl ended up wearing both of them. And she said her son looked at her like he wanted to kill her.
Oh, buddy.
And so I think she just kind of realized what she was doing and how stressful that was. And that's when she, her daughter said, just let them, Mom. And when she did that, she noticed kind of just a lighter feeling. Tension kind of evaporated. She softened, and she just let them go and enjoyed the prom the way they wanted to. She goes, no skin off my back, however they want to do it. And so that was just kind of the start of it. And then she posted that on a 60-second video that went viral. It has 60 million viewers. Then articles were written on it. Then blog posts were written. There are people getting tattoos that say, let them. And Apple said that she was the 6th most shared podcast of the year globally, that particular podcast on this theory. So that's pretty far reaching.
So it's timely and I think obviously helpful to a lot of people. If you guys were going to describe the let them theory to listeners, like they haven't read the book, you're just going to describe the let them theory, what would you say?
Well, first of all, I was going to comment on how she came up with this theory. Can we not all see this playing out? I mean, can we not all imagine this scenario? And I know I have felt the same type of, oh my goodness, I've kept 4 kids alive. They're not going to survive without me micromanaging every little thing. And then it's like they hit a point where you cannot control every little thing that happens to them. And for your own sanity, you literally have to let them.
Right.
So as I read that, I'm like, first of all, I've been in a scenario very similarly often. And almost, I think how I would put the let them theory into words is realizing you have no control and allowing people to be people. You've got to let them be themselves and you can't control it. So it's kind of okay, I can't control this. I need to let go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can remember a really specific situation with one of my kids where I got that look, like the gritting teeth and the eyes like, "Mom, drop it." Because I'm the one that has to face these people and deal with this, not you.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that cue. It was really hard,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
but I remember that look. And so I would say that this theory is about freedom. She talks about it's freedom from the burden of managing other people. And that is a lot. That is a heavy burden to feel like you're managing things that you can't manage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that actually increases the stress level when you try to do things that you have no control over.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I would say that the let them theory to me, it's basically letting people and relationships be who and what they are and give up trying to control their people and what they do and how they feel. And I think it sounds like you're going to become a martyr or you're being really passive aggressive when you say, let them. Kind of like
Right.
you're just disgusted and you're washing your hands of them, as if you'll be telling yourself, let them, but you're going to be really resentful and frustrated and disgusted. But when you really start reading about it, you realize that that's not what she's saying. Like, if it's done right, you can actually improve your relationships. This isn't a washing your hands of the situation in disgust. This is accepting what you can control and coming to terms that other people are going to be other people.
Right.
Yes, you're not using it correctly if your relationships aren't getting better. That is the goal. Not to cut people off, not to isolate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm actually glad we're saying this because I really struggled with reading the intro and then the first chapter. I thought this is a really great technique, dealing with other people, handling your own emotions. But I really felt like something was missing, that it could be really almost a self-serving,
Mm-hmm.
becoming a passive aggressive type of approach to life. And when I read the second chapter, it put it into perspective, and I'm so thankful we're talking about both because there is a balance of letting go of control, but also what my responsibility is in a relationship. So I'm thrilled that we are coupling those together today.
And it sounds easier said than done, at least to me. I feel like you know what's easy? It's easy to tell other people to do it. If we're on a walk and Julie is sharing about a relationship problem in her life, it is so easy for me to say, let them. Or, my husband sharing something, it's so easy to say, why are you getting all worked up? Just let them be who they are. Like, it's so easy to tell other people, but it's really hard to do yourself.
Well, and even if you can tell yourself, you have to believe it. And you have to deal with the feelings because the feelings won't go away just by telling yourself this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a process to work through, so I think that's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right. Well, she explains that this theory works because of the understanding of a fundamental law of human nature. And Julie, what is that fundamental law?
Well, she states that all of us have this intrinsic built-in need to control things, control our time, our plans, our future, our thoughts, our discussions, our surroundings, our environment, and that we do that because it makes us feel safe and comfortable.
I mean, the more control I have, the more peaceful I feel. At
Yes.
least in theory.
But it's all an illusion, right?
True.
Well, I thought this is human nature. This is our gut response when anything fearful comes our way. She talks about fear. She says this is really the basis for a lot of our need for control is fear. But I was thinking about, self-preservation is really strong. That's our human nature. That's our first response typically to anything we perceive as being not right, harmful, whatever. And so whether that instinct is real or perceived, we have the tendency to want to protect not only ourselves, but our family, our friends, situations. And sometimes that need to protect actually causes so many more problems. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does.
This made me think of Happy School. Did you guys think of that book any when you're
Yes.
because she
Be
said the
smoked.
same thing. Like, like that we can't control the actions and thoughts of other people.
Yes.
I wonder how many books we have to read to come to believe that and practice it.
You're like, oh, you're not in control.
True.
What? I'm still shocked. I'm still trying to work on this.
Right.
Yeah. I just wanted to say one little caveat here is like when I read books like this that are kind of, I guess, labeled self-help books, which I hate that title or I hate that description. I always want to be careful to compare it to scripture because and it's not at all that I can't learn something from a secular author, but I just always want to see how it lines up with scripture and that it doesn't depart from scripture. So I'm just going to be watching that the whole time because even though she says some things that are very similar to Happy School, like it's true, you can't control other people, but I think she's coming from a little different place than a Christian perspective. And that's okay. I just need to recognize that.
Yes, Julie, I'm glad you said that because I had the same kind of struggle. I was like, I'm definitely learning something from her. How does this balance, with what I've learned from scripture? Because there's so many spiritual foundational truths that I am like paralleling. And so I do want to stick with the book, but also our listeners already know we're believers. And so we're looking for how does this correspond with our Christian faith and what does this call us to as believers?
Good point.
All right, well, let's talk about where we seek control in our lives, in relationships. And Julie, you asked us if we struggle with worrying about what other people think, if we try to control or manage other people's feelings. Are we a fixer? Do we try to change people? Or maybe we have tried to change people. And I'll just put check, 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 check.
Yes to all of the above.
Yeah. Do you need a list or can I just say yes to all of them?
I really think that if any person is listening and is honest with themselves, they would also put check, 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 because it is human nature. It's really hard to not have that be your first instinct. I was thinking about where do I see control? I think, of course, I want to control how other people see me, how they feel about me, maybe like the impression they have of me. But one of the biggest things I struggle with wanting to control is I want to be understood. Like if I've made a mistake, I want other people to understand why I made it, like what background went into it. Like it wasn't necessarily like bad intentions or evil on my part. Like I want someone to understand. Or if I'm upset with something that someone did, I want them to understand why I'm upset. It's not enough just that they see that I'm mad. Like I want them to understand me. And I want people to understand maybe like the what made me sad or insecure or scared. And I want others to know the why behind things. Like if I offended them, why I didn't mean to or what background went into that. And so it's really hard for me to let things go when I feel like we didn't get to the understanding each other part. People in my lives will say this, close, family members, like, I can't let go. We have to keep discussing it until I feel like there's been an acknowledgement and they truly understand where I'm coming from. It's not enough to give lip service to it. I have to feel it in your tone of voice, in how you're rephrasing it, that you understand what I'm saying. And so the let them theory would say, let them misunderstand me. Let them mischaracterize me. Let them think something unfair or untrue. Guys, that is so hard.
Yes.
It's funny because it says if you're not this way, you're likely married to somebody this way. And I thought that's what you just described was who I was married to.
Okay.
Like never ending the conversation until we are sure that we understand everything about it. But being misunderstood is a very painful and frustrating feeling, like it's like if I can just say enough to get you to understand. I struggle more with controlling other people's feelings. Like I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be comfortable. I want everybody to feel good about things, So that's kind of my weakness. And we asked if we were fixers. And I thought, of course, I would have to say yes, but I would say that we do change, and that I'm less of a fixer, I think, than I used to be, because I have a much better understanding of how little I can fix or should try to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to say, okay, Lord, this is just another opportunity to trust you with the outcome.
Mm.
Yes.
I can't fix this, and I shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I know. I feel like things have been pried out of my hands, not of my own accord, but life will hit hard sometimes, and it happens to all of us. And I think through the years, I just feel like the Lord he keeps showing me like what's in my own heart and trying to pry my fingers off the control I try to hold on to my life with. And I'll think that I'm doing better, and then something will happen to my husband, and then, then I wanna control that, and then I think I'm doing better, and something will happen to my kid, and I'm like, "Oh, no."
Mm-hmm.
Having adult children leave your home, like, you're very aware that you don't control anything anymore because 'cause they'll tell you.
Yeah.
It
Exactly.
actually, like, it's a little easier when they're like, "Mom, I'm praying about this, you need to trust me." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so I have to run somewhere with all of my crazy thoughts, my anxieties, my fears, they are still there. And so I do have to give those to the Lord. I have to feel like somebody is taking care of my kid because I think, oh, they're not smart enough, or maybe I didn't teach them this. And then the Lord's like, Mindy, you're not smart enough. And I've kept I've kept you in between the lines for a long time. Like, trust me, let go, let go. And every day I wake up and I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm anxious about this relationship, and I'm like, "Okay, I can't control that. I need to not be offended. I need not to not perceive offense. If somebody doesn't respond fast enough, I need to not spiral down into why don't they like me anymore? And I need to be able to let people be people and to sometimes be in charge of loving other people and reaching
Yeah.
out." And so it's
Mm-hmm.
all hard.
It
It's all
is.
hard.
I think one thing that's missing, kind of an undercurrent that's missing for me in this book, is, yes, I'm not in control, but I do know the one who is in control.
Yes.
And I miss that in this book, but it's okay. Because I know it, and I just have to keep, I think there's a balance in there of, yes, I can control my own reactions, but even then, sometimes that doesn't make it easier sometimes. I just have
Right.
to lean more into that the Lord is working this out for my good, or that he's enough, or.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, let's go into chapter 2 a little bit. Julie, do you want to describe chapter 2 to us?
Yeah, this was a very relevant example. She is sitting on her couch scrolling through Facebook, and she sees a friend she recognizes is on this wonderful girls trip. And she's looking at all the pictures, and it's like, oh, they're having a fabulous time. And she kind of pinches the picture to get a closer look, and she starts to realize she knows all these women, and they're
Mm-hmm.
all past friends, and they've all gone away, and they've not included her. And she said it just kind of spiraled from there, because she didn't just, leave it. She goes to each person's profile and looks at their life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And, like, really does a deep, deep dive into all their lives and how great they are and how much fun they're having without her.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went to, what did I do wrong? How have I offended them? Like, why didn't they include me? And, tempted to even reach out because she wanted to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think her husband walked in and said, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
And she told him, and he was just like, "So what? Let them have their fun." So, and then she just goes on. The rest of the chapter is kind of explaining how she uses the let them theory to handle a situation like this. And one thing we haven't talked about is there are two parts to this, and she'll get into that.
Yeah, so there's the let them, and now we're going to talk about the let me. Because if we
Mhm.
just stop at let them, we're not going to be happy. I mean, we're just going to be
Yeah.
kind of saying lip service to let them, and it's not actually going to make us feel better. The part that's going to make you feel better is the let me. I think every single person listening has found themselves in this situation where they saw all their friends got together without them, or they went on a girls' trip without them, or there was a birthday party and they were not invited, or whatever. And it's probably hasn't even only been one time. I mean, it's probably been multiple times at multiple stages at multiple points in your life. I think we can all relate to how this feels.
Did you guys remember? I don't know how long ago it was, but we were getting onto podcast, and this exact same thing happened to me right before I started podcasting.
It
Yes.
did.
And you guys, like, I was trying to continue to go, but like I felt like my world was rocked. It really hurt so badly,
Mm-hmm.
and all these lies go through your mind, like, I'm just not pretty enough. I'm just not cool enough. If I were just skinnier, if I were just funnier, if I just had a better house, if I just had a better job, if I just
Mm-hmm.
whatever, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear how ridiculous those lies feel. But it is amazing when you capture your thoughts and realize what is happening. It's crushing. I mean, one of you guys, I can't remember how it came up, and I told you, I started crying and I told you what happened. We took a minute together, and one of our friendship episodes came from that situation.
Yeah.
And so realizing that, first of all, not all was lost. They didn't hate me. We were still friends. And, we were getting to know each other. And it said nothing about me that I wasn't invited. But it actually prompted me to realize one of the things that I said in the friendship episode was not everyone will have room for you, and it's okay to be able to let that go, but also to pursue and invest in the people that do have room for you.
Well, one of the things she realized once she could kind of get outside of her emotions and think more reasonably was she hadn't reached out to these women in a long, long time. You know, she had been focused on her career and had not called any of them, and had been, really busy. And she said, I haven't even thought about them. She goes, I probably wasn't just intentionally left out. They didn't even think of me,
Yeah.
And so she said that helped me to decide, what do I want to do about that? Like, maybe I need to work less. Maybe I need to reach out to these people. Maybe there are one or two that I want to reconnect with.
Right.
Yeah, I think it helped her to realize that she had become complacent in her own friendships, just assuming they would be there or not even really putting in any effort, not, even thinking about them. And then when she saw it, it took her a minute to realize it's kind of how she got to the let me. Okay, well, what can I do? I think I'm not sure if she said this or not, but one of the big things that I need to do is assume good intentions. Not assume bad.
The worst.
So, like, we just are so quick to assume negative and very reluctant to assume positive. So I think that would help a lot. Like, assuming positive really was what she came to was, I haven't reached out to these people. I haven't been putting in any time and effort. When they planned it, they probably were all together, booked it. Like, not assuming that they specifically, her name came up and they all said, no, we're not inviting her.
Yeah.
Yes. Marie, this is such a major point, and I'm so glad you're bringing this up because this is a lot of our misperception. And sometimes we can really sabotage or say goodbye to a relationship by perceiving or assuming the wrong thing about somebody. And so, if you're just driving down the road and somebody cuts you off, you don't know the person, you're mad, but you can maybe imagine that maybe they're going through something difficult. Maybe they have a sick kid in the car. They don't see you, then trying to get to the doctor, right? Like, that's a way you can kind of reframe that in your mind. Well, if it's a friend, you walk into a room, you smile at them, you feel like they see you and look away and don't smile, you think, oh no, they're mad at me. They don't want to talk to me. They're embarrassed by my friendship. They're not going to, talk to me in public. And you just go down this, you know what I'm saying? Like, you perceive that all of these wrong things about this friendship. But if you're able to kind of think, oh, maybe they didn't see me. maybe it's that simple. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that you then go up to them and talk to them. And they're like, "Oh, I didn't see you there. I'm so glad you came over to say hi." Think of what damage could have been done had you imagined that they didn't like you anymore and were
Mm-hmm.
ignoring you. And you then, in turn, responded to those misperceptions and
Right.
emotions.
Right. It kind of goes back to like believing lies that, that you've assumed are true.
Yes.
And she said, reacting negatively could lead to all kinds of like, oh, just let them go on their trip. They always leave me out, or like that's going to cause a spiral,
Self-pity.
or
Yeah.
yeah, or even then talking badly about them behind their back, like, well, blah blah blah.
Right.
Those are all the negative ways that hurt us.
Mhm. I really liked her pictures, her visuals that she used
Mm-hmm.
about the let them, what that looks like by itself, what let me looks like by itself, and then what it looks like together.
Why don't you describe for listeners the pictures and what impacted you about them, Mindy?
Okay, yes. So in chapter 2, she uses some visuals that I actually really enjoyed. And so the first visual is you're on the seesaw. You're on one side of the seesaw, you've got a group of friends on the other side. All right, so a picture of the let them theory is first you're offended, so you feel lower than all of your friends. If you say let them, it helps empower you, it gives you freedom, and it kind of elevates you. Now you're standing over the group of friends and they're low on the ground. There's this feeling of kind of superiority, detachment, and she actually labels it as a false sense of control. So that's only saying let them. If you say let me, then it balances it out because then you're accepting, you're understanding, you're compassionate, you're responsible for your feelings. And there is a sense of control now that's actually true. And so let them, let me together helps give you balance on the seesaw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at first I kind of cringed when she said, "Well, you feel superior and above
Yeah,
your friends." I was like, "Ooh, is that a good thing?" And she said, "Actually, no, like that can't be the end. That's not the
right.
goal, is to be above your friends." Because she said you're going to sit in superiority alone on your couch
Exactly.
if you do this.
Yes. Yeah.
And she said that this was really just a way to get you to leave the emotions and get to a clearer place in your head, like of reasoning, and not to blame or beat yourself up or whatever. It's really just to kind of detach yourself from these emotions and get to a better place of acceptance, and then you can say, now let me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, before we really dive into later in the book, she says, does the let them theory apply to children? And I think it's so easy to bring these up in relationship to our adult children. And I would say that as your child becomes more and more of an adult, more and more of the theory applies to them. But if you're like me with kind of young adults that you're still responsible for, but yet they also live on their own at college, but yet they're also calling for advice and they haven't really gotten established in life, but they're sort of there. Things that I hope I can just say, let them in 5 years. I don't feel the freedom to do that right at this moment. So I'm hoping that as we read the book, it might talk a little bit more about that because that is one of the things she kind of says.
I think she has a special chapter at the very end on
Okay.
children. But I agreed when she was talking about the prom. I thought, oh, and now did she rent that tux and he destroyed it in the rain? Or, you know what I mean? Like when she
Yeah.
said, it's no skin on my back, like sometimes when you have a responsibility, whether it be financial or just in
Mm-hmm.
some other way, it's harder
Mm-hmm.
to say let them if it's going to fall back on you in some way.
Right.
Legitimately, not
Yes.
just.
Yes. And believe me, I actually think that it improves your relationship with your adult kids when you can get to the point of let them. But there's this weird period of time where, like you said, Julie, you're still financially responsible, and yet they also want you to say let them. And those two
Uh-huh.
things don't always go together.
If I'm paying for it, I'm not letting you.
Yeah. Right. They don't understand that, but that's a
Yeah.
If
legitimate.
you would like to pay for it, I will let you.
Right. So, anyways, another warning that she has, in addition to the adult children, I really liked this. I had started. Let them is not an excuse to stop answering your phone, to shrug your shoulders, to refuse to talk it out with a friend or family member who is hurt, to stay in a situation that hurts you, or to ignore discrimination or dangerous behavior. It's not a license to give someone the silent treatment, ghost people, avoid hard conversations, or withdraw from your relationships. That would be the washing your hands in disgust. That is not what we're trying to do, even though it can be hugely tempting.
Yeah, because she asked, I think this was earlier in the chapter, like, how is saying let them different than, oh, I don't care, just let them? There's a difference. Because the latter, like, oh, I don't care, just let them, kind of just feels like you have no other choice. Like you're just throwing up your hands, like, oh, well, nothing I can
Right.
do. But the let them is meant to just steady yourself, detach yourself from your emotions so you can do something good about it. It's not meant to be isolating, because she said a lot of people have messaged her and said, I'm using the let them theory and I'm all alone. I'm not
Yes.
doing anything. And she said, well, you're probably not using it correctly. You've stopped at let them.
Right. I feel like there's so much of managing our emotions here. And I do feel like emotions are very heavy. And there's certain relationships I can let them, I can let me, I can create healthy boundaries. And, it doesn't have to be a relationship that is constantly hurting me. However, if it's a relationship that's like my husband, we will stay married. If there is hurt, perceived hurt, like, there's a let them and let me that happens in a very, very close relationship like that.
Mhm.
But there's also then I'll say this is where my spiritual foundation and biblical teaching comes in, that I feel like I want not only a let them, let me, I need forgiveness. I need restoration. I need vindication. I need something more to come back into that unified right relationship before the Lord. And so this is where I cannot separate the Bible and that teaching from this book, because for me this is the only way I can live, is by accepting God's forgiveness for me, extending forgiveness to others, and then praying for God to restore relationships.
She mentions that, to kind of give legitimacy to this theory, is that it's backed up by, you know, ancient philosophies like Stoicism and
Right.
Buddhism and detachment theory and all these psychological theories. And I thought that was interesting, because why not Christianity? Like, there's so much of it that is also true of Christianity. And the one that really hit home with me, because she said a tenet of Buddhism says that suffering comes from just not accepting reality, like resisting reality. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh, that is so true of Christianity too, like releasing your grip on how things should go,
Mhm.
and she even says this, and allowing them to unfold as they will go.
Mm.
Mhm.
I mean, that is saying, God, your ways are higher than my ways. Your thoughts are higher than my thoughts. I don't understand. Like, I relinquish control. Like, that's a very Christian
Mhm.
perspective. And I appreciate that. And she didn't really give credit there, but I do think that is a Christian tenet too. And it
Mhm.
kind of reminded me of that serenity prayer, which I have cross stitched.
Right.
If you remember it, it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. So that's let them, let me right there.
Mhm.
And
Uh-huh.
then the wisdom to know the difference. I mean, that's saying the same thing.
Mhm. Well, was there anything that you guys said, let them, let me, about this week after having read the 2 chapters? Even if it was small.
How long do we have to talk about this? Because yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do you wanna share any examples?
Okay, there was a disagreement that I happened to be privy to of 2 members in my family, and everything in me wants to fix it. Everything in me wants to step in and be a peacemaker and make everybody happy and tell them like, oh, you're misunderstanding them. And hang on, you're not hearing them correctly. Like you're both kind of saying the same thing, but you're not communicating. Everything in me wanted to do that. And I thought, I cannot do that. I cannot step in. I cannot fix this. It's not even about me. Do not step into the fire.
You'll only get burned.
You will get burned. Okay, but this is my desire. And I hear us all saying, like, we want understanding. We want right relationships. We don't like, if somebody's fighting, especially two people you love. And I had to leave the house. I had to pray. I had to walk and I had to let it go. And do you know God worked it out between those two people? And I never said a word. I did not have to involve myself. I had a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, and it was not my place to do a thing about it.
Mm-hmm. And your involvement could have complicated things or created new problems, I guess,
Yes, Julie. Yes.
What about you, Julie? Did you have any opportunities to put this into practice?
I mean, there haven't been any big dismissals or hurts that happened this week, but I just feel like, constantly having to let people think differently than me, and have different opinions, and that happens all the time. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I definitely think that when you are brushing up against people on a regular basis, it's really easy to say, let them, if you're seeing them once a month at book club. What do you care? Let them, let them be whatever they want to be. But when you are seeing people on a regular basis, it gets harder. So, like I had one son home this whole week who is financially responsible for himself, but is not married and does not have a significant other. And this could be a whole podcast in itself. So who is supposed to say these things that I see as red flags or things that he should do differently? But if he had a girlfriend or a spouse, I would be off the hook. Because if they can stand it, well, then what do I care? But if I'm the only woman left standing between him and society, well, now I have to be the one. And so, like, the let them theory was kind of like rolling around in my head. Like, well, do I say something? Because if they went for an interview, this could really be something they would have wished that someone had said. But on the other hand, they're 22. I should let them. It's just all this stuff in your mind. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, I want to get to the point of let them. Believe me, I want to get to the point, but I don't feel like I'm there. And then also just like there's been different people that you interact with that I didn't have it this week, but different times in my life where I've just had to say like, that's just that person. Like, all right, that person is going to ask you a super personal question. Let them. You can answer if you want to. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. That's just their personality. Or, you know what? That person is going to be 15 minutes late. Why are you stressed about it? Like, just let them be the person that is 15 minutes late. Let them be the person that took credit for something that you did. Okay, it's annoying, but it's going to happen in life. Let them. Like, there's so many different little things, little quirks about people's personalities that you have to just say, you know what? Let them. And in return, there's a lot of quirks about yourself. Like she talks about this, I don't think in these first 2 chapters, but she talks about like how her husband and her kids can seriously drive her up a wall. And they're saying about her in return, there's things that she does that drives them up a wall and they have to just say, let her. Like there are different things that we give permission for people to be, and we just need to be able to take a step back and say, that's just who they are.
Yeah, I think she wrote this book with her daughter. Her daughter helped her write the book, and she acknowledged that her daughter is probably having to say, let them over and over about her mother,
Yes.
Yeah.
I often tell my kids, because I do this with my own parents, and if you're listening, mom and dad, it is true. I tell myself, smile and nod. You know what? They're probably telling me something that I am not going to do. or that they have already told me to do and I've already decided I'm not going to do it, or I'm not going to do it that way, or I've already heard this story. But I just smile and nod. And pretty soon you get to a point of maturity where a lot of life you can just smile and nod. and that's what I want my kids to do to me a lot of times too, is take it in, act like you, not even act like, really hear me. But then if you don't want to do it later, I'm not looking for an argument. I'm only looking to be understood.
To be heard.
And here, I was going to use the term choose to be misunderstood. Don't feel like you have to fight for people to understand, because they're not. Like, sometimes they're not. You have no control over that. And so there's a couple of, I'll say, family strategies that we've developed through the years. One is give up your right to be right. Stop arguing the point. All right. You're not going to win the other person. Let it go. Another one is choose to be offended. I have noticed throughout time and experience with a lot of people, I would actually rather be the one offended than to do the one that's offending. So if there's a situation where I have an opportunity to say that snarky comeback, don't. You will regret it. I would rather actually choose to forgive and shake it off. And so those are some strategies that we have kind of developed just in our family, and also with dealing, with other people.
And I would add just that you can't change people. So it goes back to dealing with what you have, not what you
wish you had.
Think you should have, or wish with people's personalities or whatever, or how they interact. Like, just learn to deal with it.
Right.
And in return, I mean, it's so easy to think all the things that we're letting people let them. But the flip side is I hope they let me. So, we want the same treatment for ourselves too, because it's so easy to be on that seesaw, Mindy, and stop at the picture where you feel superior, like, let them. I'd never do something like that, but fine, let them. That's just not like what we're going for. And we need people in our own lives to say, oh, let her be that way. Let her be too loud. Let her talk too much. Let her interrupt me. Let her be too emotional. Whatever the problem is, we want people to say, let her to me too.
Can I put it very simply? Let them, but not just let them, love them.
True.
And so if we can add that tagline, that's what we're talking about. To really love someone, you're going to forgive, accept faults. You're going to seek their forgiveness. They're going to accept your faults. So to truly love them, it will allow you to let them.
And I guess that's another way of saying loving them where they are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to these chapters and what we're going to learn, because this is kind of just a brief intro, but I'm hoping that we can dive deeper into this and really flesh out how you would actually apply it in everyday situations.
Yeah, I think she said the first half of the book, she's going to talk about how we've given over our power to other people in certain areas, like in 4 different areas of how we've given our power over to people by trying to control them or caring what they think or whatever,
All right, listeners, we would love to have you come and join us reading this book, Let Them by Mel Robbins, or just let us know what your opinions are, even if you haven't read it, just from what we've talked about. Come and find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
Okay, I'm really excited about this. I'm a fan of something, Marie, that you have mentioned the brand before, but it's a little bit different. The Kinder seasoning. I think you bought the salt and pepper and garlic. Well, the other day I was in the grocery and I was looking for my McCormick's chili, like the little chili pack that you buy to make chili, and they didn't have it. So I noticed they had Kinders. So I bought it. Oh my goodness. It was the best thing. And I'm sitting here reading a review of it online, and it sounds like a review that I could have written. It said, about a month ago, thanks to the product not being on the shelf, we opted to try something different and picked up Kinder's Wood Fire Chili Seasoning. probably the happiest I've ever been with a new product. Can't quite put my finger on it, but I devour the chili once it's done. Usually 2 bowls, and we can't even keep any leftovers. And last night, we ate all the chili. And normally we have chili for like 2 more days.
That's amazing.
And it has this very smoky, I guess it has smoked paprika in it.
Oh.
It's a very smoky, slow roasted kind of thing.
Oh.
The label says chili seasoning, wood-fired chili. I mean, it tastes like you cooked it on an open fire all afternoon. It was delicious. I mean, everybody was eating 2 bowls, and there are no leftovers.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, and I noticed they had they have a ranch mix too.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't totally clean, but yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So if you want to try some, and I think this could win like a chili cook-off contest.
Oh, don't tell anyone your secret
Ooh.
ingredient.
I know. Now everybody
Seriously.
knows.
All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I am a huge fan of some food that I have been putting together. I'm not going to call it a recipe. I'm going to call it a life hack. You guys know how much I love having eggs every day.
Mm-hmm.
I have tried to love cottage cheese because I keep seeing it in recipes. I have tried it multiple ways. I do not like cottage cheese. I keep telling myself to like it because it's good for you. And I've tried it different ways, but I finally saw that I could whisk it into my eggs. And it's still kind of like you can kind of still see it there, but you can't taste it. I'm like, game changer, total game changer. All right. So 3 large eggs and 1/4 a cup of cottage cheese. That's already 21 grams of protein. I loved it so much that it was almost one of those life hacks that I thought this is already a habit after the first time. I couldn't wait to do it again the next day and the next day. Now I'll add fresh spinach, I'll add fresh broccoli, cheese. You can add, whatever other protein you want, but it has been a game changer for my scrambled eggs. And I don't think I will ever stop now. I love it.
That's great.
That sounds great. And I bet that is good because cottage cheese is a little salty to me. So that probably, it has a little bit of a salty place. That sounds really good.
All right. Well, I may give that a try at some point, Mindy. Maybe I'll just wait till you make it for me. Okay. All right. This week, I'm a fan of something that I've actually had like for a year and thought, oh, I need to use this as why I'm a fan. So last year I went to visit one of my college daughters and I forgot my dry shampoo. And her roommate had this. And I feel like when you get something from college kids, it like gives it an extra special endorsement in my mind. Like young people who care about their appearance use this product. So it must be good.
Oh, it's a cool factor for sure.
Yes, it must work. Okay, so it is, a lot of dry shampoos are more of a spray. And this is actually a powder. So it's called Odele, Odele, and it says it's made with plant proteins and 100% natural fragrance. I don't even really think it has much of a fragrance. It is, I'll show it to you. It's like this little pump. So like a spray, but when you pump it, powder comes out. And what I like about it is it does absorb oils, but it doesn't give my hair, you know how dry shampoo spray kind of feels almost sticky or like you have a coating on it? I don't really feel that with this powder. And honestly, I've had it for about a year and look at how much is only gone.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It really goes a long way. You don't need much of it. So if you don't want to use a spray or if you just want to mix up products, try something different, I would recommend this Odele dry shampoo. It's 1 ounce. This bottle is just 1 ounce. But like I said, I mean, I am maybe a quarter of the way through it after 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where'd you get it?
Where'd you get it?
I ordered it off Amazon, but I imagine that you could get it at Ulta or anywhere. I just didn't check it out. I just went home and ordered on Amazon.
All right.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, you guys, I'm looking forward to reading the Let Them with you.
This was fun. Me too. This has been really interesting.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
In another month, I want to know some other examples of us applying the Let Them, Let Me.
I'll be on the lookout.
Okay.
Seriously.
All right. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.